We have with us Mr. Sudhakar Shenoy, the session chair, who is a founder, chairman, and CEO of IMC, and was recently named one of the top 25 most influential people in Washington, D.C. He has been awarded a number of awards from government, from the industry, from the academia, and under his leadership, his company has become an award-winning technology solutions company. I would now hand over the session to Mr. Shenoy. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce my panelists here before I say a few words. The format we are going to use is that each one of my panelists will have 5 or 10 minutes to talk about their areas of specialization, and then we'll have a very informal conversation with the panelists. I'll be asking the questions, and at some point in time, I'd like to throw it open to the audience here so you can ask some questions. First of all, Mr. Saugata Roy is not here yet. He was the Minister of State for Urban Development. He's one of the most brilliant people that I've met in my life, not only because he was my classmate, but also because he's really brilliant. We have with us today Vinayak Chatterjee, who co-founded the company Feedback Infra in 1990 and continues to serve as its chairman. He's a strategic advisor to leading Indian companies, the Government of India, the Ministry of Finance, state governments, as well as multilateral and bilateral institutions in the areas of infrastructure planning and implementation. Currently, he is the chairman of the CII, or Confederation of Indian Industries, National Task Force on Regulatory Framework in Infrastructure. He's on the board of directors of several very large companies, including L&T Power and HDFC India. And he's also a member of the Board of Governors of the Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow. He's a graduate from St. Stephen's College, New Delhi, and he has an MBA from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Subrata Paul is currently Chief Executive Officer and Director of Bengal Aerotropolis Projects Limited, which is developing the Durgapur Aerotropolis at Andal. Bengal Aerotropolis Projects Limited has entered into a joint venture development agreement with West Bengal Industrial Development Corporation for developing an aerotropolis comprising an airport, an industrial park, a logistics hub, an information technology park, and a township in the Durgapur Asansol region of Bardhaman district in West Bengal, one of the most centrally located industrial zones in eastern India. I'm glad that my little write-up here explains what an aerotropolis was. Otherwise, I was going to ask him. Mr. Paul is a mechanical engineer from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and he also has an MBA from the London School of Business. With that, I'm sorry the organizers gave me the wrong piece of paper, so I don't have information on the other person. With that, I have a few words. As you're aware, the PANIIT movement has started what is called the WHEELS program. And one of the spokes of the WHEELS program is infrastructure development in India. For any country to develop to its full potential, one of the most important things to have is proper infrastructure. Somebody told me that India produces enough food, and if that food we were able to get it to the marketplace in time, the rest of Asia wouldn't have to produce any food. However, because of poor infrastructure, roads, and other forms of transportation, much of that food gets bad and spoils. So you can see from that how important it is for a growing country, for a country that's on the move, to have proper infrastructure. I'm glad that the three people that we have on our panel are experts in this area. And I now refer to them. Why don't we start at the far end and go ahead and start the presentations. Go ahead, yes, please.
Friends, good afternoon. Since this is a panel discussion, let me not burden you with a long speech, but let me leave for my co-panelists as well as the moderator and for the rest of you 12 reasons why I'd like to propose that Indian infrastructure is poised for its next very major upcycle. Point number one is that PPP in this country is firmly established. In 2010, India emerged as the largest PPP market in the world. China's GDP is 4 times ours, but our infrastructure PPP market, where private participation comes in, is 6 times that of China. Second reason is that we are reforming factor markets. All of you are aware of the delicensing or liberalization of 1991, which we very proudly proclaim all over the world. There is something we missed there. Economists call it factor markets, which is the market for land, electricity, coal, natural resources. India had not reformed factor markets. We hadn't even touched them. With all these scams from spectrum to coal to various other issues, India is finally addressing the cleaning up of its factor markets. That's point number two. Point number three is, surprise, surprise, crony capitalism is actually set to wither. Some independent studies done recently of infrastructure bids that were bid out in the recent past have actually shown that the level of transparency in bidding out the projects, there are still some problems in post-award concession management. I'm pushing that aside. But precisely in the bidding out of ultra-mega power projects, or for airports, for road projects, for ports, every business newspaper reader in the morning would know the criteria on which a company has been selected, whether it's maximum revenue share or minimum viability gap fund or whatever it is. So in many senses, crony capitalism in the infrastructure sector at the bidding stage is actually withering away with tremendous activism by the media, judiciary, civil society, as well as by bodies like the CAG and others. So it's a happy thought, and most people haven't seen it this way. Point number four is that there is a very big power push. In the 12th plan, on 27th December, the final meeting of the National Development Council is being held at the Planning Commission, which the Prime Minister chairs, that will adopt the 12th plan document. In the 12th plan, there is 88,000 megawatts of power, that generation capacity, that is set to be implemented. While all of you are reading in the papers about all the problems, from grid collapse to coal shortage, the point is that out of that 88, about close to 75 is already well under implementation. And major issues in coal, from imports to aggregation to pool pricing, including revamping the grid, connecting it to the southern grid, etc. The power push is big. So we're actually going to see a major upturn in power. Point number five is the Land Act. The Land Act, much debated, much criticized, is one of the most seminal pieces of legislation anywhere in the world. Very few emerging markets have a Land Acquisition Act as comprehensive as ours is said to be now. And it marries many disciplines. It marries sociology, business, economics, and politics in one fell swoop. So the fifth point is the Land Act. The sixth point is the largest roads program in the world. Currently, it is going through certain pockets of, there are issues currently, but if one evens out the cyclicality, the roads program continues to be at the NHAI level, one of the biggest in the world, and there are 29 state governments, not all of them are active, but 6 to 10 state governments are pushing their own state road programs also under different models, BOT, EPC, annuity, etc. The different models are being followed. Point number 7 is that public sector investments have just organized themselves for one massive push. 150,000 crores of investments are already lined up by Coal India, ONGC, NMDC, SAIL, NTPC, HAL. 2 new ports are coming up, both on the eastern coast, one at Sagar by Steel Authority and one at Rayapatnam in Andhra by NMDC. I'm just giving you these examples to show that there's a very massive public sector push in infra that's well underway. Point number 8 is urban mass transit systems. You know, people haven't realized the potential of the metro. We popularly call it metro, but we should really be calling it urban transit systems, because there's a huge spectrum of choices and metro rail is just one of them. But there are 9 cities in India today which have either implemented or implementing the metro program, and there are 19 other cities which are reaching close to financial closure. Cities like Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Cochin, etc., etc. So there are 19 cities, and we understand that, including Ludhiana, various other cities, we understand that almost another 40-50 are lined up for the 12th plan for solutions in world-class mass rapid transit systems for their urban populations. It's a huge movement that has started. Many people still haven't woken up to the true potential of what is being unleashed. Point number 9 is construction and real estate. The GDP figures, while they were at 5.4% last quarter, interestingly enough, the construction industry is growing at 11%. You can correlate that with sales of cement at around 8-9% and sales of steel at that level and railway loadings. So the construction industry, because of real estate and roads, is actually booming. Point number 10 is that the project pipeline had gone into a slump and is now once again moving into a very active project pipeline. 2 major ports I already spoke about, three airports at Navi Mumbai, Mopa in Goa and Kannur in Kerala, elevated rail corridor project in Mumbai, high-speed rail corridor between Mumbai and Ahmedabad, redevelopment of 5 railway stations. The list is fairly large and I don't want to bore you with it right now, but huge amount of development work is happening in the back room to create the pipeline of projects for tomorrow. Point 11 is political re-energizing, which is to say that all of you who've been reading the newspapers and seeing business news know about the government setting up the National Investment Board, which hopefully should crack one of the biggest impediments facing the country, which is the whole guardian knot of permissions and clearances. Much can be said about it. Let me not take more of your time. But the last point, and point 12, is that we always doubt. There's a lot of skeptics. There are a lot of critics about India's planning process. We ask, why is the Planning Commission relevant? What do they do, etc. But if you just see the 11th plan, we had planned in the 11th plan investments of about $500 billion. The 11th plan has closed, and independent estimates have said that the country is going to achieve about 480. That's not bad at all. Many corporates don't do that. Forget governments. So let's just not criticize for the sake of criticizing. We are one of the few nations that work on a yearly planning cycle. In the 11th plan, the achievement on infrastructure, I'm not talking about other areas, has been commendable. If you have achieved more than 90%, even in spite of the drought in infra today, I certainly shouldn't see the reason why we should lose hope. So just to close my, the 12 points that I just unleashed on you, there are many people right now, because infra is going through a bad patch currently. Stocks are down, companies are over-leveraged, etc., etc. So there is this famous saying, and it's a cliche, that the pessimist sees the glass half empty, the optimist sees the glass half full. You are all from the IITs. They say, the engineers say that the glass is over-engineered, and the optimist and the realist, not the realist, the opportunist comes and drinks the water from the glass. So I'm actually, in a sense, leaving that thought with you, that there is a time once again for huge opportunism, both at an entrepreneurial level, at a public policy level, at a technical level, at a financial level, for this great new market once again set to re-energize itself, which is the Indian infrastructure market. I will close my comments with that.
Thank you, Vinayak. I now call upon Mr. Subrata Paul.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think we are unfortunate of having a session after Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, where he, after hearing him and his panelists, I think it's a difficult task to, really, energize all of you and make you start thinking. I think Mr. Chatterjee,
there's nothing more exciting than building roads, No.
Mr. Chatterjee really put the stage where, from an infrastructure perspective, I think all the 14 points he laid out, it's really the issues, and these are the things that we have to tackle. I want to take a little different approach to the whole topic today. I'm looking at the urban development issue, the investment in urban development. If in India today, if you look at it, the agriculture as a percentage of GDP is about 17.2%, while still as per the last census, 70% of our population is still rural. So we have a huge challenge there, where that a large amount of the economic activities are focused on the urban areas, but the jobs are in the urban areas. So how do you, so the issue really is that you have to have a real push on the urban development. But today we still don't debate this urban development enough. You hear issues in Mumbai, stop migration. Migration is the method of where urbanization will grow. Cities will develop, people from rural areas will get job opportunities. I think politicians tend to say again, no, stop people moving from the rural areas. Let's do something there so they don't have to move. But that's not the reality. The reality is that we have to increase our urbanization to be able to solve the emerging employment problem that is coming up, to be able to shift the rural population into the urban areas. Means I'd like to quote some figures from the McKinsey's Global Institute report on urban. They call it India's Urban Awakening, Building Inclusive Cities. India's estimated urban population in 2008 was about 340 million, which is expected to become 590 million by 2030. That's about 250 million more in 22 years. And that's the challenge, and we have to reach there, because otherwise we won't be able to solve our issues of poverty, solve our issues of unemployment. And this is a real challenge. If you saw from 1971 to 2008, in about 37 years, India's urban population grew by 230 million. Now we are saying in 22 years, that's between 2008 to 2030, we have to grow it by 250 million. So that's a real challenge. So this 590 million that we are talking in 2030, by the way, is twice the current US population. So what we have to, what is the vision in 2030? 2030, as per the report, 68 cities will have population of 1 million plus, compared to 42 today, compared to 35 in Europe only, 35 minutes. So that's the sort of challenges that we see. Expected investment is 1.2 trillion capital investment is required for this urban development, for this to get this population moving from this 340 million to 590 million in this 22 years. You have to build every year 700 to 900 million square meters of residential commercial property. That is adding one Chicago every year. And as Mr. Chatterjee spoke of the metros and subways, we have to add 7,400 kilometers of metros. That's 20 times the capacity added in the last decade. But how do you expand this? How do you get this city, this 250 million? Means we have not been thinking enough. You know, of course, the traditional methods are still available that the existing cities expand. The second is you do urban renewal within the cities that can then help you to, provide space for more people to come in. But I think we have to really think of being able to build new cities in the next, this 22 years, build about 40 to 50, minimum 40 to 50 new cities. And how do you do that? And that's the challenge we have to all think through. If you see traditional urbanization, the transportation infrastructure is the basis on which urbanization takes place. So I think government is already talking about it. I'd like to highlight it so that we start thinking around it. We have to, cities will be created around airports. I'll talk about my project to sort of take you through this, how cities can be developed around new airports. But it will be developed around road networks, developed around rail corridors. See, if you look at the DMIC, which is a Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor, which is a very ambitious and the largest infrastructure project that is being talked of. People say it's the largest infrastructure project in the world. But what is it envisaging? It envisages a 1483 kilometers of high-speed multimodal freight corridor with the first phase investment of 90 million. But what I would like to highlight there is what is being sown in that project is urbanization. We are talking of creating 9 industrial areas, industrial regions of 200 to 250 square kilometers with an additional 15 industrial areas of 100 square kilometers. So these industrial areas will have both industries coming up and social infrastructure. So these will be the seeds of the new urban centers. If you really think of roads and connectivity between main cities, we have to think of creating corridors like this where you then create new cities on the corridor. Examples that come up in mind when you think where you could do it, Bhopal-Indore is one corridor where you could develop cities on that corridor. Cuttack-Bhubaneswar is another. Chennai-Pondicherry is another one. Vizag-Vijayawada could be developed as corridors in line with the DMIC, that you create a high-speed corridor, have urban centers based on industrial activities created on that corridor. So this is one. This would be the way going forward, where we can create these new cities that I have talked. Because to fit in this 250 million, the existing cities cannot do it. We have to create these new cities. The next point that I'd like to focus is on airports. Airports can become new airports can become centers around which cities can be developed. Erythropolis is a word coined by Professor John Casada. He's a professor in University of North Carolina, and his view is like, in the past, railway networks, highways have been the transportation infrastructures around which urbanization has taken place. But in 21st century, urbanization will take place around cities. So in Bengal Erythropolis, we have been trying to do that in Durgapur. We are building a regional airport around which we are building a city having economic activity, including industrial, logistics, IT park. So in this 2,000 acres, what we are trying to create a new city of 75,000 people, generating employment of about 110,000 people in the next 8 to 9 years, with a total investment of 10,000 crores. So this is a harbinger of what urbanization should be. This is around airports. And I've also mentioned that we should try to focus on the major city connectivities, which I gave few names. There could be more, where around which you create a high-speed corridor and create these industrial areas which have social infrastructures, and the future cities are built. And in West Bengal, since we are sitting here, I would say that we should think of creating the two corridors that come into my mind is the Kolkata-Kharagpur corridor, and the other is the Kolkata-Asansol, around which you start thinking of creating this urban centers. So as I said, that we at the political level, at the as we debate various issues, this urbanization has to have a focus on how we can create these new cities. That's the thought I'd like to leave behind.
Thank you very much. I'd now call upon Mr. Ashish Wadhwani, who is here in place of Mr. Vikram Gupta. Just to give you a small background on Mr. Wadhwani, he's an IIT Delhi graduate, and he's a founding partner of Ivy Capital Ventures. And the nice thing about this venture fund is that it is specifically focused around IITian ventures. In other words, I take it's meant for ventures that are put forward by IITians. Great concept. I think it has its pluses. He spent several years, probably over a decade, with various corporates across Asia, and the last 5 years in private equity. He has also served with Tata Industries. So with that, Mr. Wadhwani, it's all yours.
Thank you. No conference on infrastructure starts or ends without a mention of the huge amount of capital required and the large problems that plague it. All of us are aware of it, and we live it every day, whether it's water, road, electricity, transportation, housing, name it, and we experience the problems every day. Having said that, obviously when there's opportunity, where there's a problem, there's an opportunity. And what I want to focus on talking to you about is a slightly different perspective, a venture capitalist perspective, and potentially also talk about what IITians are doing and can do there. And also that kind of give you a flavor of why I see hope, particularly in terms of the kind of initiatives that we see as a venture capitalist. So first of all, I think Vinayak has spoken about the top-down. This is a policy-intensive sector. But clearly the need for innovation cannot be overstressed. Why is innovation required in something as boring as electricity? Because the problems and solutions of yesteryear need not apply today. You are trying to solve much larger scale problems in India, and you're trying to solve it in a completely different context in terms of how we live and our consumption levels. Second need for innovation really is the fact that if we divide our country, it probably comprises of several countries together. So we cannot apply the solutions of the West or the solutions of Singapore or Malaysia to solve the problems of even Delhi or Mumbai. Similarly, the solutions that work in Mumbai and Delhi, we cannot apply those solutions to solve the problems of tier 2 cities, and even those solutions does not work when we go down to the rural level. So the need for innovation cannot be, is certainly there. You've got to build new business models. The third thing that's happening is really technology. And we live in a world where sort of broadband is getting accessible slowly but surely over the next maybe 10 years to people. And that is spinning out changes in every part of people's lives. And therefore, I think these three drivers emphasize that there is a need for innovation in this sector. So it brings us to the question, is innovation really happening? And again, I share it with you the perspective of our fund because we see these deals. The good news is that there's a lot of people out there. There are a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm very glad to say a lot of IITian entrepreneurs who are working on solutions related to getting water, related to recycling of water, related to waste to energy or waste recycling, related to solar energy and how you get it to rural India, related to even information technology. I mean, there is a company, I'll talk about a few examples, but how do you get a large number of people to get access to broadband? Or how do you get farmers to get access to information? So I'm very pleased to say, and this is where I get the maximum amount of hope, is that there are a large number of very, very, very capable entrepreneurs who are working on innovation. Will that solve the huge problems that we have or the scale of problems that we have? Probably not. But what it will do is really create a multiplier effect. Once you can replicate a model in one or a few villages or one district in India, that then can be replicated across the country. Let me share with you a few such examples. I mean, one of the companies that we are working closely with provides information services to farmers on their mobile phones. They have a footprint of 1,400 mandis, across 1,400 mandis, and they get live data from there. And they have the back end to push that data to the mobile sets of farmers. Of course, with farmers subscribing to this service or the agro input companies subscribing on their behalf. You can quite imagine what that does. Basically, a farmer who's got maybe some produce in rice, some of vegetables, he knows precisely the kind of prices that he can get in the near 3 mandis. And it basically gives him pricing power, that information. That puts money into his pocket rather than putting it in the hands of the middleman. A fundamental change, a great innovation, and that basically can drive a lot of change in the lives of the farmers. Another very interesting example, again by an IITian. He's using technology to solve one of the fundamental problems of India that all of corporate India has been trying to solve, how to improve rural distribution of products. So again, completely brilliant model. They've built software, they have in place the infrastructure and the network, where they're making huge impacts on the working capital and inventory levels required in the chain. And seriously, and they are successful in at least two geographies in Rajasthan. Now it's the issue of scaling it up. If and when we scale it up, I think it could really change the amount of even transportation that is required, or inefficiencies in the transportation sector. There's another company which is extremely successful, again by IITians, who have mobile, who've successfully provided broadband solutions in certain niche urban areas. Now they are looking to sort of roll that out to through multiple models across the country, so that broadband is available to a large number of urban users and potentially also semi-urban users in the country. I think these three are just three examples. We have seen sort of new technologies in water recycling. We see technologies in waste to energy, which are completely new to India. There's a new equipment technology company, again set up by an IITian, which is doing projects in the US to recycle waste lube oil. So all I can tell you is that from the kind of deals that we have seen, the kind of entrepreneurial talent that we have met, it gives me a lot of hope that there are some fantastic solutions out there which can make a dent on this big infrastructure problem and take it to the next level. So what is the venture capital's role in this? I mean, we basically are like any other venture capital, but we think that venture capital, by the way, will provide such a minuscule amount of capital that's required in this sector that it's probably decimal points. But the important thing that it does is it creates innovation, and it creates a multiplier effect in the industry. The second thing it does is really that, through our fund, we are trying to bring a mentorship program, and we have a very, very large team of mentors who are experienced in this and who have done successful exits, to work with these investee companies in driving that innovation. So you have capital on one hand, you have high quality talent on the other hand, and by the way, again, most of these mentors are IITians. And what we are trying to do through our fund is also basically encourage IITians and similar other professionals to drive innovation and to create new business models that can be scaled up so that we can solve some of these problems. I want to touch upon one more point which is related, but it is very close to my heart. I think there is always a debate of, if you want a road, why doesn't the government build it? And I think India has made great progress in public-private partnership. But one of the things that we are doing as a fund, which is fundamentally different and which is the first of its kind in India, is the concept of give back. 25% of what we will earn as fund managers will go back to the institutes of choice of investors, and not just to improve buildings there or to improve the quality of education. What we want to do is to use that capital to fund incubation activity in these institutes. And where I'm very, very personally heartened is if we do a back of the envelope, we expect to fund anywhere between 40 to 100 such ventures over the course of our fund. Now, consider that. We all grew up in our campuses maybe 10, 15, 20 years back. Even if 5% of those incubators succeed in these institutes, you can imagine the amount of dynamism it has the potential to create in campuses. You can imagine the amount of Me Too entrepreneurs that would like to come up and try to drive innovation. So I wanted to share this with you because I think this is something fundamental, and it gives us, in fact, all of us a chance to participate in some way, no matter how small, to address the issues of the infrastructure sector.
Thank you. It's been fascinating to listen to all you guys. Now, I have a comment and then a question, and any one of you is free to take this. If you look at the entire spectrum of what happened